The paintings you're seeing right now were created by one of the most intriguing minds of the 20th century. A man who never gave titles to his works, who refused to explain their meaning, and who once said, "I want to paint as if I were photographing dreams." What you're about to witness is not just art, it's a descent into a private world of nightmares. Zdzisław Beksiński turned his inner world into something terrifyingly beautiful. But what do these images really mean? Are they warnings, memories, or the reflection of a soul that never truly escaped the horrors of its time? Zdzisław Beksiński was born on February 24, 1929 in Sanok, a small town in southeastern Poland. Just thinking about the date of his birth brings to mind the looming tragedy, the Second World War. In 1939, when young Beksiński was just 10 years old, Poland was invaded by Nazi Germany, despite having recently signed a non-aggression pact with Soviet Russia. It was the invasion that would unleash the horrors of war. History tells us that many lives were lost during the German invasion, but even more perished later, especially during the Soviet counter-invasion. Polish soldiers surrendered in October 1939 after losing 65,000 troops and several thousand civilians. When we look at photographs taken in Poland during that time, it's not hard to imagine that these harrowing scenes left a lasting impression on the young Beksiński. Despite the war, Beksiński went on to study in Warsaw, where he graduated as a designer before returning to his hometown to work on bus designs. It was also during this period that he discovered photography, something that briefly captivated his imagination but ultimately proved insufficient for the power of his inner world. After experimenting with cutting and rearranging photographic elements to create something more artistically satisfying, he discovered painting. Painting was what ultimately brought Beksiński fame. On canvas, he found the perfect medium to express his imagination. From that moment on, he did little else until the very end of his life. One of the most interesting things about Beksiński is that he showed little interest in artistic trends. He was an independent creator, largely indifferent to new movements in his field. He was also extremely reluctant to exhibit or even sell his work, especially in his later years. In a 1997 interview, he explained that part of his hesitance to show his work stemmed from concerns about lighting. He believed that the light used to display a painting should be exactly the same as the light under which it was created. Otherwise, the artwork would not live up to its origins and would be inadequate for proper viewing. His fame grew when, in 1998, his tragic story reached its climax. His wife, Zofia, died of cancer, and a year later, his son Tomasz committed suicide. Zdzisław himself discovered the body. To make matters worse, in 2005, he was stabbed to death in his Warsaw apartment by a teenager he knew, simply because he refused to lend him a small amount of money. Understanding the works of Zdzisław Beksiński is not easy. One reason is that he always refused to explain the meaning behind his paintings. Even when his images seemed to say something, he insisted they had no hidden message. When asked about symbolism in his art, he replied, "Meaning makes no sense to me. I'm not interested in symbolism, and I paint what I paint without thinking about a story." This might be hard to believe, since many of his paintings feel full of emotion or deeper meaning. But no matter what he said, his work has a powerful impact that speaks for itself. In another quote, he shared a very striking idea. What matters is what appears in your soul, not what your eyes see or what you can name. This invites us to experience art with our emotions rather than trying to analyze it logically. Still, Beksiński did leave one clue about what he wanted to achieve with his work. "I want to paint in such a way that it appears as if I am photographing dreams." That phrase might be the key to understanding him. His paintings look like something out of a dream or a nightmare. It brings to mind the words of writer H.P. Lovecraft in his 1919 story Beyond the Wall of Sleep. "I have often wondered if the majority of mankind ever pauses to reflect upon the occasionally titanic significance of dreams and of the obscure world to which they belong." Many people connect the dark tone of Beksiński's art with the tragic final years of his life. But in truth, His most disturbing works came long before those events. This shows that his art wasn't about personal tragedy. It came from somewhere much deeper, his imagination. I believe a large part of Beksiński's work relates to the experience of the Second World War. We see many religious elements in his art, cathedrals, crosses, but also everyday settings that seem transformed by trauma. It's hard to imagine any comfort coming from faith, even if he had held onto it from the beginning, when people were being killed in the streets, cities were set on fire, and Jews were packed into trains headed for extermination camps. What I think Beksiński shows us is that there is more than just the visible external world. The power and importance of fantasy and imagination are often underestimated, especially in an age where science, thankfully, is respected and vital, but imagination is not less than science. If I may speak freely, sometimes I believe fantasy and imagination are more important than science. I can read history books and look at photographs taken by journalists from the time the Polish painter lived, but when I look at his paintings and try to imagine that era, it affects me far more deeply. Of course, things didn't literally look like that, but to him, that's how they felt. In Beksiński's works, we can experience his reality through emptiness. He allows us to step into the mind of someone metaphorically possessed by the hellish manifestations that were unfolding in his streets and in his country. Emaciated, broken people, cities reduced to rubble, and any support from faith collapsing until all that's left is a featherless corpse hanging on the cross. Beksiński shows us more than reality ever could. He reveals the human experience of true trauma in moments that are almost impossible to imagine through simple facts alone. He speaks to us with honesty about his fantasies, born from the darkest corners of his mind, and reminds us that there is more than just reality, whose expression can sometimes feel painfully inadequate. But this is just my interpretation. I would love to read yours in the comments. And to end on a positive note, the man was not constantly depressed or tormented. According to many, he had a sharp sense of humor and was a pleasant person to talk to. If you're a true art lover and would like to decorate your home with a masterpiece, I invite you to visit the link in the description or scan the QR code you see on screen. There, you'll find a carefully curated catalogue of over 500 artworks, ready for you to choose your favorite and collect it for life. We offer free worldwide shipping, and you can also order a phone case so you can carry a piece of art with you wherever you go. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.